What's going on, everybody? Today we're breaking down 5 of the biggest questions facing the Cleveland Browns ahead of the 2026 season with Ace Browns beat reporter Zach Jackson. You can find all of his great work over at The Athletic at Akron Jackson on the old Twitter sphere. Happy training camp, Zach.
Yeah, man, good to be here. Good to be back. I think it was like last year around this time I was in a bar. That's probably stunning. And I was talking football. That's probably stunning. And there was this kid, I don't know, young adult, I guess, hanging around. And like he didn't want to butt in, but he comes up to me and he goes, "Dude, do you know Ian Hartitz?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, great day to be great." And then he walked away and we didn't talk anymore. But yeah, football is almost back. So right down the road for me in Canton, Ohio, like 2 or 3 days. I don't know what day it is, but we're getting ready to have actual partial football back.
I appreciate Zach in a world full of beat reporters who, again, try to have those rose-colored glasses on. I do think you do a better job of maybe being a little more realistic about the standings. Obviously, being with the Cleveland Browns makes that maybe a little bit easier than the other ones. So I understand, everyone. Neither of us are here to tell you the Browns are going to be this top 5 juggernaut offense. But guess what? We still see plenty of great fantasy players come from even more mediocre offenses. And maybe, just maybe, this guy Todd Monk could help things out. But obviously, Zach starts at the top of everything. QB situation. It's been a mess kind of forever. Shout out to my dude Bernie Kosar back in the day. But Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, again, it's kind of the McLovin-Muhammad competition going on. Is there any hope for something better than just mediocre play under center? And how do you see his competition playing out?
Well, the hope for anything better than mediocre would be that the young receivers do look really good. And Harold Fannin is really good. So like from a fantasy standpoint, yeah, maybe. Like, Ian, I think totally, no doubt, there's really good young players on this team on both sides of the ball. I think a wilder take would be maybe it's not going to be a fantasy wasteland because they have good young players, and I think they're going to be losing a lot too.
Yeah.
But as far as the quarterback, this is the hard one for me for a lot of reasons, is that even entertaining the thought of putting Deshaun Watson on the field as a non-starter for me. Right? Like you are not winning the Super Bowl. You are probably not making the playoffs. This is the guy that sunk the franchise. So why even go? He's only on the roster because you can't afford to cut him. So get ready for next year. Play the young guy. The more gifted young guy is Shedeur Sanders and see what happens. So I think it's headed that way because through the late spring and just now barely a week into camp, Deshaun has been so bad. Like he has been so bad that it's reinforced my thoughts. So long way to go. 5 or 6 days into camp, I would say Shedeur is leading. I wouldn't say he's winning, right? But he's leading. And I do think, in fairness, that he's shown some improvement. He is an accurate thrower of the ball, and he last year did the smart thing and threw it to Harold Fannin. In camp this year, he's done a lot of smart things and thrown it to the perimeter to Denzel Boston. So, like, he's coming along. And to me, if the Browns do anything other than put him out there and let him grow and let him find out what they have, then they are just wasting everyone's time.
Certainly flashed a few times last year. Titans game was a lot of fun, horrible weather, inexplicably getting 60-plus points, getting scored in that one. Made a couple nice deep throws. So I'm with you. Always would like to see the younger guy went out. I did see something interesting. I think it was an interview with Deshaun a couple months ago where he was saying he felt like he was back to 100%, which, again, coming off not one but 2 Achilles ruptures just sounded wild to me. Have you seen anything close to kind of that pre-shoulder, pre-Achilles version of Deshaun athletically at least?
No, I think he definitely looked healthy and fresh in the spring, and that showed up because he is a good athlete. Is he the same athlete? I would doubt it. Can he stay healthy once he takes a hit? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. He will occasionally make a good throw, and I think even through the 3 years that he played, there were some moments. But man, It's almost always followed up with like this inexplicable decision. Like he threw 6 picks in the first 4 days of camp, and people got excited. They weren't all his fault, right? But 2 of them, there were 3 defenders there, and he just threw it, and one of them caught it. Like it's bad. He just doesn't process, and he just has not been consistently good at anything. And there's just no point in playing him. If he has an NFL future, and I doubt that he does, it's not in Cleveland. So why are the Browns even entertaining the thought? Tells me they must not like their other options, or they're just the Browns, and it's the latest inexplicable thing that they're going to do.
Any thoughts, any propaganda on Taylor Green? This is someone who blew up the combine. And hey, in Fantasyland, we love quarterbacks who can run the football. How good they are in real life, be damned.
Yeah, I'm afraid that people aren't going to get that preseason fantasy big game out of Taylor Green because they have to play the other guys, right? Yeah, I think he is getting comfortable, and he's certainly intriguing. He's not getting many reps now because he's fourth in line and they see him as a development. So they love the kid. They love the upside. There's a scenario where he's active for games and plays as a running back and a short yardage guy. But I think they plan to develop him. And really, this is kind of like year zero for him. And then next year, regardless of what it looks like, the rest of the quarterback room will be his chance to show that he can be an NFL quarterback. But I think there's a thought in that organization that Taylor Green will help them win a game at some point. But will that be as a starting quarterback? Probably not. And right now, that's like galaxies away from happening.
Interesting, though. Short yardage package. I know they used Harold Fannin a little bit in that last year. And obviously, don't want to take the ball out of his hands either. But I mean, that would be a fun spot there for Taylor Green. Obviously, though, run the football. We want it to be going to the bell cow, Quinshon Judkins. Yeah. Look fantastic. Dude. I've said, I think if we made an alien who had never watched football before, watch all these running backs in the 2025 rookie class, they might very well say Judkins was the best of the group. I mean, especially before, the second half of the season really was doing good things. From your just point of view, having watching practice, does he seem all the way back to 100% coming off that devastating injury?
Yeah, he seems healthy. He seems explosive. So I agree. He's a very talented player, and it's a question of good or great. It's not a question of if. With any running back, it's what's your opportunity, who's blocking for you, what game script are you in, all of those things. But just from a physical standpoint, it was clearly there last year. He didn't have training camp, which is why he couldn't play in the pass game. And I think that's an important note for fantasy nerds to know this year. But just seeing him kind of ahead of schedule back in May and now seeing him, you wouldn't know that there was an injury. So I think he's so much better than the other guys. I think what it's going to come down to for the Browns is a difficult decision on how much to use him. And if they're in a game early in the season that their defense has kept him in, I think you let it rip. Now, over the course of the season, we'll see. But if this dude stays healthy, he's going to produce. And a couple times last year, you heard the Nick Chubb thing thrown out there. Some of the Vikings players actually said it after the London game. And I thought it at times. So that's getting way ahead. But he's a top level exploder. And, as he adds to his game, which just going through a training camp, my dog needs to shut up. She's so excited about Quinshon.
I was hyped about some Quinshon.
She drafted him in the third round. Yeah. So, is he going to play 16 games? I don't know. But is he going to get volume when he plays? Absolutely. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
The pass down skill set's interesting because he never looked out of, position catching the football during his time at Ole Miss and then Ohio State. And even last year, some of the dump downs they would throw him on play action and stuff, it seemed fine. Dylan Sampson, though, is someone a lot of us fantasy nerds and virgins are looking at. And, he broke off some of these screens. He had some really good, per route efficiency numbers, right? That honestly put him near the top of the class, though. But I did notice you say, Judkins just does seem to be in a different stratosphere than these guys. Could you see Monken leaning on Judkins more so as that true 3-down workhorse, whereas last year it was at least a little bit more Dylan Sampson on pass downs?
Yeah, I think I could. I don't know because we're too early in that, right? And they're still installing the offense and trying to get reps for everybody. Dylan Sampson to me is not an RB2. He's a specific role guy. He's tiny. Now he's quick, but he's tiny. So I think it's Quinshon Judkins and then it's everybody else. Dylan Sampson's going to be on the team. He's going to return kicks. He's going to be a third down back. But if Quinshon would miss time or as this offense evolves, I don't know what's there. I think Rocket Sanders is the emergency option. I think he will make the team. And if, assuming health, those will be the three. But Dylan Sampson's just so much different than those guys. And this is no knock on Sampson and Sanders, who I think have a chance to be decent NFL players. Quinshon's just so much better than all of them. He just is. So you have to keep him healthy and you have to find the best way to use him.
Interesting. So Sampson, even if he is the second man up in RB drills, you're saying you would expect a little bit more of a committee as opposed to Sampson stepping into some sort of a bell cow role without.
I think if I have this right, he was the youngest player in the whole NFL last year, and he's also one of the smallest players. He's tiny. So you see it, the quickness, you're okay, that's why they took a chance on him. Mm-hmm. But what does that really translate to over the, to me, it just translates to a specific role, and we'll see. Quinshon did not do any of the team stuff in the spring. They were just bringing him along, and usually it was Rocket Sanders getting that. And they have a guy named Amani Marshall who's a holdover from the practice squad last year. They did sign another smaller back in undrafted free agency. The name is escaping me. So you're seeing these guys get their turn. And like I said, my just conclusion is just that Quinshon Judkins is just better than all of them combined.
Hey, man, makes sense. Again, we're always looking for those mid-round bell cows. So good stuff on Judkins. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit on the assumption, everyone, on Sampson being that surefire next man up. Let's talk about the breakout guys, though. You had a great tweet yesterday that Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston are already miles. Wait, Galaxy's better than any of the other wide receivers. And I'm a little bit offended, Zach, because I spent too much of my summer drafting Jerry Jeudy. I was thinking maybe you can get traded too. So we'll see what happens. I'll go down with the ship, whatever. But man, what has it been about these pair of rookies that, again, just have you so impressed?
Yeah, well, Boston, it's the size, right? And then he didn't run the combine. And like, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I kind of assumed he was this huge, like, lumbering dude, and they were just going to throw him passes on the outside. And he's not. Like, he's lean and he's fairly explosive. So he's got a long way to go. But like, from the very start, they've thrown him the ball, and like, you see him use the size. He's not just big, right? And like, he was the undoubted star of the spring. At a time they're not completing a lot of passes. And Concepcion, he's lightning. So he's tiny, and he dropped a couple in the spring. He dropped too many in college. But like 5 days into camp, man, he's been all over the place. So the ball is going to be in his hands. He's going to return punts. He's going to run jet sweeps. They're going to force him touches. But like, he's a pretty good route runner. And, you know, they didn't know they figured they were starting offensive line. Right. They didn't know what exact trade down would come. Kind of Caleb Downs was the emergency, but they wanted to get Spencer Fano. They made a trade. They did. Yeah. Right away, they wanted Casey Concepcion. Like, they wanted him. Mekhi Lemon was out there. Other guys were out there. That's who they wanted. And for some reason, if that wouldn't have worked out, they would have drafted Boston at 24. They ended up getting him 15 picks later. So that's not super telling, because you start playing that what if game and you can change a lot of things, sure, right? But like, these are the guys that they went through the process. They were like, okay, we'd love to have Carnell Tate. We're probably not going to get him. The other guys we're not sure on. This is who we want. And that's who they went and got.
Now, with KC, obviously, there's been a lot of kind of parallels to him and Zay Flowers, just with, again, them being these jitterbugs, super agile dudes. And I love what you said about the jet sweeps, getting these design touches for the guy, because obviously he is electric with the ball in his hands. First round pick, though, I would hope that he's still very much going to be a starting every down wide receiver, getting gadget touches, not someone we have to worry about being, you know, more of a part-time player.
Yeah, he's going to have those touches, and he's going to be on the field. I just don't know what they're going to do personnel-wise, because especially if Watson plays, it's going to be a lot of heavy personnel and like just protect him from himself, right? So, sure, like, isn't Jeudy going like 16th round or 17th round in best ball?
So late, man.
It's so late, and so I don't hate. Now he's not very good at football, and that's one of the problems. Okay, but he's going to play. Like, when they're out there in September, Jerry Jeudy is going to play a lot of the snaps, and a lot of the snaps at outside receiver, and a lot of the first read. What he's going to do with that, I don't know. But as they go forward, Boston is most definitely that outside perimeter, you know, red zone, sideline wide receiver. And Concepcion is going to be in a bunch of different places. So he's going to have the touches. He's going to have the volume. Like, again, if you're a fantasy player and you're scared of the Browns, I get it. But like, in that, you know, past the 10th round or in the 10th, like, as your fourth wide receiver, like, this guy's going to get volume and he's going to score some touchdowns. Now, are they going to score 15 touchdowns as a pass offense the whole year? I don't know. But like, Casey Concepcion's going to have opportunities to make big plays. No doubt about it.
I know you're not sitting in the GM's office. You're going out there and you're just, again, writing fantastic stuff for The Athletic, doing your thing. Could you see a scenario, though, where if Isaiah Bond is coming up a little bit, KC's playing well, Boston's going well, like, do you have a percentage chance or just like a gut feel? Like, is Jerry Jeudy still going to be on the Browns at the end of this year?
Well, he's only on right now because they can't afford to trade him. So down the road, once they make some decisions and know the path, like if someone's willing to give a 7 for him, sure. You know, but yeah, this is probably his last year. Sorry, I was kind of getting ahead of myself talking October here. Isaiah Bond is interesting, and he definitely had a big spring. Now, he really didn't have much of a training camp either. He's gifted. I would say he's not as good as Concepcion, and they probably play the same position. So I think he's going to get chances, and he got a couple last year. Shedeur threw him a couple of bombs. So that'll be there. But again, we're still figuring out what this offense is going to look like, because Fannin wasn't there in the spring, and he missed a day for personal reasons early. Boston and Concepcion are undoubtedly going to play, and how everybody else fits and where they are, I don't know. Like, Cedric Tillman is having a good camp because he's out there killing the threes. You know, he and Dylan Gabriel should not be out there with the threes. So the Browns have upgraded that, and Cedric Tillman might be on somebody else's roster. But he's not as good as Denzel Boston, and Denzel Boston's going to be on this team for a long time. Tillman's in the last year of his contract. So I know the rookies are going to play, and I know Jeudy's going to play early. But what it looks like in October, we really don't have an idea because it's a brand new offense, and they're just trying to get everybody up to speed. But Bond's talent has shown up, and I think there's probably worse, like last-round flyers than him. But he's not as good as Concepcion. So where his opportunities really come remains to be seen.
Cedric Tillman, man, those 4 weeks from 2023, hell of a drug. People forget.
Well, what happened is they didn't have a real NFL offense when Watson was in there.
Yeah.
So as soon as Jameis came in and started throwing the ball down the field, like guys started making plays.
Funny how that works.
And the thing with Jerry Jeudy, in full fairness, like he's done it. He's just never done it consistently. But even if you take away that Monday night game where he went mega nuclear, like he's got 100-yard games. He's got 70-yard touchdowns. He just does the dumb shit like last year when he fumbled the ball in Las Vegas, and like he is getting so schooled by Denzel Ward at training camp. So we're all watching the quarterbacks, right? Well, every throw that goes to the outside to Jerry Jeudy goes incomplete because Denzel Ward just is absolutely a phenomenal football player and Jerry Jeudy isn't.
Yeah. Congrats to Ward on getting absolutely paid here recently. Certainly deserves that. So Jeudy, it's just one of those things where you look at the receivers with 1,200 plus yards in the last 2 years. Most of them go in the top 15 because they're awesome. Brian Thomas Jr. is a little bit later. And to your point, Judy's like around 16. So at some point they do become a value, but really does sound like Casey Concepcion is going to be, again, probably the guy we're chasing mostly in fantasy football drafts. Accordingly, if you guys are trying to get that leg up, code Ian20 for all of our RotoWire tools, rankings, draft assistance, all that jazz. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Harold Fannin, though, let's face it, probably should be the star of the show. I love there's a great account out there called Coach Speak Index that actually goes through, watches all the press conferences and tries to kind of put a grade on exactly, what coaches are telling the truth when they're talking about usage and not. But it was just, talking to Monken, and it was like, hey, do you see Harold Fannin being a big part of it? And he immediately was like the Kool-Aid man. Oh, yeah, Harold Fannon's going to be a big part of this offense. How does he look coming off the offseason groin surgery? And do you see him potentially being the leader in the clubhouse to, again, lead this team in receptions?
Yes, and yes. That's how I see it. Again, we don't know. And it's been kind of a slowish start to him. Now, Monday, he was the guy getting it. And I think he's going to get all those opportunities. But he looks good. I just think it's a matter of getting on the same page. Like if you don't play for months, it's hard to get in there. But he definitely came back stronger. He doesn't look slow or anything. He just turned 22 like 2 weeks ago, right?
Crazy.
And played in the Mid-American Conference. So that was my thing with Harold Fannin last year, is I knew he was good and I was high on him. I just didn't know how it was going to go, right? Njoku was the starter. It wasn't going to be a good offense. This is a 21-year-old third-round pick. Like we got to figure it out. And then he was out there early with the ones, and they were lining him up at fullback and quarterback. And I was like, man, are they desperate? And they were, but really soon my answer was they just trying to get this guy on the field and get him the ball in any way that they can. So, I think to me, he's still the significant favorite to lead the team in targets and receptions, no doubt. And I'm going to speak my language. I'm not going to speak yours, Ian. I play best ball to an extent. I don't hold any like delusions that I'm great at it, right? But I think I've drafted 6 or 7 teams. And the other day I was listening to a fantasy podcast and I logged on just to see, because people were getting in an argument about like who had who. And there's one player that I've drafted on like 70% of those teams that I've drafted, and nobody else at like 20%. And guess who that player is? Harold Fannin. Because to me, he's going way, way, way too low. Like he is really, really, really good after the catch. He's a big target. The quarterbacks trust him. And if he becomes the focal point of this offense, it would not be a surprise to me at all.
He just led the whole position in tackles avoided, and it wasn't particularly close.
He's so natural.
Oh my God. Him, Tucker Kraft, Darnell Washington. They're so fun to watch, man. Football should be fun too.
Listen, 4 years ago, this dude was a high school safety who played receiver and played a little quarterback. And Big Ten wanted him, and they wanted him to play safety. Some of them wanted to put on weight and play defensive end, right? And because the way a couple things went, Bowling Green got him and made him a tight end. Mm-hmm. And then even when the big schools came with like the $1 million, his coach basically said, they're not ready. Like, we need you here, and you can turn down this $1 million now, and you're going to make many millions later. And it was right. And like I said, he just turned 22, like the week before they showed up for camp.
I got to start drafting more Harold Fannin myself. One of the things I did look at this offseason, Zach, which should make you feel better about that exposure, is just what positions can do better on bad or like bottom 10 scoring offenses. There's been 30 combined, like top 12 dudes at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, bottom 10 scoring offenses do their thing. 24 tight ends alone, which I think kind of makes sense. You know,
sure
your
does.
entire passing game is flowing through a tight end. You're playing from behind. Yeah, we just saw with Trey McBride last year.
Yeah, I think in full fairness, like Shedeur did some good things and Shedeur did some bad things last year. Yeah. And, you know,
how dare you have a rational take?
But one of the smartest things he did is he locked in on Harold Fannin. Like he recognized it right away and he knew, hey, whether he trusts what he saw or was comfortable with anything else, like he knew this defense is coming at me and I'm looking for 44.
Zach, fantastic stuff. Again, everyone can and should go find yourself over at The Athletic. Have fun continuing to cover Browns training camp. Anything else you want to get off your chest, my friend?
No, it's too early. Like I said, we're just kind of figuring this out, and I don't know how it's going to go. I do expect that they'll trade Cedric Tillman if the opportunity presents itself. I don't know what happens with like a tight end 2 situation here with the Browns. And I don't, you're not going to play Fannin as like a true tight end 1 and have him blocking 60% of the time because they're going to run Judkins a lot. So like what position does he end up playing and who do they have on the field? We're just too early to know that. But like I said, I'm down on this team and they should be playing for the future. But in terms of like good young players, they have a bunch of them. 21-year-old Concepcion, 22-year-old Boston, 22-year-old Fannin, 22-year-old Judkins. And that's before you get to the defense where Carson Schwarzenegger is defensive rookie of the year, right? So like there's potentially a bright future for the Browns, but I've covered a lot of Browns quarterback competitions. And in a weekend, this is as bad as I've ever seen. Like it is dreadful. So it's just a weekend and preseason doesn't start for 10 days or something like that. But it's dreadful so far.
I do hear you on the overall roster building. The last 2 draft classes have been nice. I think the Travis Hunter and Myles Garrett trades, you really couldn't ask for getting more back,
Absolutely. People are excited about the Myles Garrett trade. Now, the reality is you had to make it because Watson sunk the ship, right? And the reality of this quarterback competition is it's the guy that sunk the franchise versus a guy who, if he gets a lot better, can be an average quarterback. So temper your expectations, but like, the next best ball draft I do, I'm going to stare at Judkins really early because if he can stay healthy, even if they stink, like he's going to have the ball all the time and he's explosive.
Judkins, bell cow, everyone. Harold Fannin, focal point of the offense. KC, Concepcion, Denzel, Boston, flashing. And if the quarterback competition is to be believed, just maybe Shedeur Sanders is one we should actually be expecting to be starting from the beginning to the end of the year. But again, Zach, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please like the video. And that subscribe button always helps us out as well. But for Zach, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, take care, everybody.